Victory Monday. It's the first time we've been able to say that, Mace. Orange and blue today, Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason, and Victory Monday sounds good. Things must feel real good around the Broncos down there in Tampa.
A lot of good feelings when I walked into the locker room yesterday. There was still like steam and smoke. There was they did their thing that they did after the Buffalo game last year on the road. They kind of had a little mini rave in the locker room, it looked like, after the win. So, I think they call it, club dub, as it were. So a lot of good feelings for the Broncos. And I think we can kind of put some of the doomsaying predictions back in the barn for a little bit. I mean, as they say, it's a week-to-week league. And this week, as the Broncos fly up to West Virginia today, they're feeling pretty good.
They are feeling good. And Mace, I'll little mini rant at the beginning of this show because I think fans should be feeling good too. I saw too many people like, oh, it's just one game and Tampa Bay was banged up. You have to play who's on your schedule. And if they happen to be banged up and they have to have starters that are missing, that's who you're playing. The Broncos came out and they attacked where they should. They said, you stack the line, you got one-on-one on the outside, we're going to go deep on the outside. They did that. They started out hot. And I think, yes, we should be excited today. It doesn't mean they're going to the Super Bowl, but damn it, this is a good day.
It's a good day. You mentioned one-on-one on the outside. I mean, that's the first possession right there. Courtland Sutton one-on-one on the first play. A couple of plays later. By the way, really watch Josh Reynolds at the start of that route. Watch the stutter that he gives and the sell that he gives to get around the shoulder and get the separation. And then Bo Nix with a very well-placed pass downfield. And, of course, the other thing about that play, the design of it, you've got the single safety, and the safety is drifting over to the other side. So you set up the one-on-one. So it's when it all comes together. Adam Troutman mentioned last week in the run blocking how it takes one guy doing something wrong and it all falls apart. What we saw more than in the first two games, Cease, was what happens when all 11 are working together as intended, doing their part. Obviously, there's still some things to clean up, still some plays you point to, you're like, man, that was a mess. But it was good to see. But I would say a good metaphor for this day was Jaleel McLaughlin's touchdown, because there you have a moment where things go wrong, and yet through skill and ingenuity, you're able to overcome it. Even when things went wrong, the Broncos had enough adaptability, skill, and ingenuity to overcome that and get a win over a Tampa Bay team that was not only banged up, but I really think didn't necessarily take the game seriously. So I think you have to mention that as well. They were looking past the Bucs. One reporter on local television down here in the Tampa Bay area said that they were happy all week. Happy is not good. They were happy. So they were happy after going to Detroit. You and I talked about that. They're going to have to come down from that emotional high. The Broncos were urgent after getting to 0-2, and that's another reason why I like the way the Broncos attacked vertically on that first series, was because that was a team that walked in there probably ripe for the kind of ambush the Broncos threw at them.
And the Broncos are ready for it. You mentioned the safety rolling over. As I've said often, like, they're treating Sutton like a one. Defenders are treating Sutton like a one. So you have to treat Sutton like a one. So one of the things that made me really happy is at the end of the day, seeing 11 targets for Courtland Sutton. I want double-digit targets every game for that guy. He's your one.
Yeah, he's your one. And, oh, by the way, the production's going to look a lot different than it ever has for Courtland Sutton. I mean, we're sitting there talking about what it was, 7 catches, 68 yards yesterday, I believe.
8 for 68.
Something like that. Well, whatever it was, we're talking about under 10 yards of reception. Mm-hmm. Courtland Sutton, in this scheme with this quarterback, you're a chain mover now. This is not going to – you're not going to have an audacious yards per catch figure in this scheme. It's not going to be 9 balls anymore. It's okay. It's just it's adaptability. And the thing is, Sutton has the skill set to be able to adapt to a new role. just because he hadn't been doing that in the past doesn't mean he didn't have the hands, the physical presence, the mentality to not transition to something different. And more game days like this, Cecil, and we start having an interesting conversation about what happens with him contractually going forward. Because effectively, he's on a 1-year deal. The dead money is minimal in 2025. So if he proves to be a reliable target for Bo Nix, as he was on Sunday, to kind of move the chains, chew the clock, then he becomes somebody who has use going forward. And then it's time for a conversation about, do you tack another couple of years on the contract and maybe create something that works for both sides? It's a long way to go. It's week 3.
Sure.
But it's good to look over the horizon a little bit and look ahead to the plans for future years, because you know what? The new league year comes in not even 6 months. This thing happens pretty fast.
It does. Things happen quickly in this league, Mason. Let's get to the confidence talk with Bo Nix. Now, you and I have talked about him being inconsistent. I don't know where this narrative that Sean Payton thinks is out there. Maybe it is out there, Mace. I don't know about him lacking. Bo's very confident. He's always been confident. It's just inconsistent. And, the bad footwork, and he came out and he was dealing, know, he had cleaned up that stuff and he was out there dealing. So I'm not exactly sure why Sean Payton was asked about confidence. If you want to set this up because you were in the room, go ahead, because Sean had an interesting answer for everybody.
Yeah, it was a pretty, I wouldn't say emotional response, but it was a pretty firm response to the notion that Bo Nix, in terms of confidence, was maybe flailing a little bit after the first couple of games that didn't go his way. And so when the question came up, he didn't quite have that, but something very similar. I'm glad we have that in our bag of tools, by the way. Yes. Right there, right along with the Vic Fangio one. I mean, it's good to have these things. So there's Vic, who had a much better end game yesterday than he did last week against Atlanta. Yeah. But here's what Sean Payton had to say at the notion that Bo Nix's confidence was in any way waning.
No, stop. It's fitting your narrative. It's not. Kid's been confident. This kid's been through Auburn. He's transferred. He's won. And honestly, I haven't seen him flinch. We all get a little bit more confident with a win, but I say that respectfully. He hadn't flinched. And I think that we had a good plan. The players did a good job. And then certainly he had more fun than he did in prior weeks.
I like that. More fun. It was more fun for all of us.
Hey, winning is fun. As Nuke Lelouch said many years ago, I love winning. It's like better than losing.
It's very profound.
Yes, very, very deep stuff there from Ebby Calvin, Nuke Lelouch, and Bull Durham there. But, the thing is, there's all these cliches that come into play. Like it's a week-to-week league, and it is. I mean, this thing is astoundingly hard to predict. I was looking at my predictions for Sunday, and I'm like, I got that one wrong. I got that one wrong. I mean, all of a sudden, Carolina changes quarterbacks and looks competent when they go out there to Las Vegas. The Rams are 0-2, and they look awful for a half yesterday. They turn it around against San Francisco, get their first dub. It's, and yet somehow this morning, crossing some social media fields, is some idiot who's a Bucs fan saying that Baker Mayfield's interception proves that the league is scripted. It's like, no, this is children, please.
Yes. Yeah. Let the adults talk, right? Let's talk about ball, and let's talk about this good win, man. And Bo Nix, the happiness, certainly more confident after a win, but it's been there. And then we get to the running back conversation. We
Yes.
opened off the air, and you said we have to see what happens with Javonte.
Yeah.
I have an idea, and we also have a pronunciation to get right for everybody. So let's bring up now the running back situation, because the momentum almost shifted. It did shift a little, and I thought it might be disaster giving Tampa that momentum in the second quarter after the Javonte fumble, but not with Tyler Badie.
Yeah, well, let's first start about the momentum. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it deviates to another conversation, but it's worth talking about. You and I discussed the 2-minute drill last week. I wrote about it. This is something that was a first building block for Bo Nix. They did effectively. As we're watching that Tampa Bay drive develop after the fumble recovery, you're seeing the Bucs getting the goal to go. The Broncos still have 2 timeouts. They use 1. And I'm thinking to myself, they did leave the Broncos too much time, and they did. Bo Nix, again, very smooth procedurally in the no huddle, lickety split, making good decisions, doing a good job getting everybody set. And lo and behold, they get 3 points back at the end of the half. I think that right there helped squelch Tampa Bay's momentum. When you came back from the 7, you got the 3, you made it 20-7. So I just want to kind of touch on that. But the Javonte Williams fumble, Cease, after that fumble, he did not touch the ball on the 2-minute drive, I believe. I'm just going back and consulting the play sheet right now. Yeah, he did not touch the ball after that on that possession right before halftime. Javonte Williams went into halftime with 4 carries for 10 yards and 3 receptions for 21 yards. He closed the game with 1 more rush for 2 yards and then 1 more reception. So he basically fell out of favor after halftime.
Well, and Tyler Badie was getting it done.
Yeah, Tyler Badie. Yeah, I did off air. I looked up the etymology of his name, and it actually goes it's a name it's a surname that's been common in Iran and Egypt, but Badie goes back to medieval Latin that went through French, referring to somebody being a janitor. Hey, Tyler Badie cleaned things up on the offensive side, clean things up for a very messy running game.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to love that. You have to love that.
Yeah, guy gets an opportunity, takes advantage. I love that energy. It reminds me of what we saw from Palcho. It's like you get an opportunity and then you play that well. Yeah, man, that's what it's all about. Waiting for your opportunity and then striking.
Waiting for your opportunity, striking, and then like the background that you have, where you come from in terms of the draft process or how you arrive with a team doesn't matter. I mean, Badie was a 6th round pick, and he ends up spending most of the first 2+ seasons of his career on the practice squad, to the point where in year 3 he still had eligibility for rookie mini camp. Think about that for a moment. Alex Palczewski on injured reserve for his rookie season, not getting a shot here until the 3rd game. He's undrafted. I was talking with Jaquan McMillan yesterday, and he had the task of covering Chris Godwin, because Godwin worked in the slot, something we're seeing more with Tampa Bay this year. He had a solid acquittal of himself as well. McMillan undrafted, Palczewski undrafted, Dondrea Tillman with a couple of sacks coming through the United Football League with the Birmingham Stallions. Badie coming from being a late round pick in Baltimore, and then being on the practice squad for a while. You're seeing these Broncos players with relatively humble origin stories becoming key parts of it. I mean, we can kind of go around the roster. PJ Locke was a guy who went undrafted. Now he's he's one of your starting safeties, right? You got Jonathan Cooper, who's averaging a sack a game so far this year, 7th round pick back in 2021. And if the Broncos are going to navigate their way out of this mess, this salary cap mess, this lack of draft capital mess that has happened over the last couple of years relative to, that Russell Wilson contract, you're going to need players like that to get you out of it. You're going to have to cash in and find players and find contributors who don't have the 5-star background that a 1st or 2nd round pick has.
Makes them likable. Ragtag group out there making plays and getting it done. Before we get to the long drive, let's hammer home what we expect to happen at the running back position, because I expect Javonte can be their Samaje Perine.
Yeah.
Because you trust him in pass pro. He's great in pass pro. You trust him as a receiver. He's fine as a receiver. 7 yards a catch yesterday, at 10 yards a catch last week. So Javonte as a receiver, fine. But Badie needs to get, let's say 12, 15 carries, and Jalil's role can stay the same. That's the thing. So it's still a committee. It's still a hot hand, Mace. But damn it, if Badie doesn't get more work, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Badie got 7 carries in the 4th quarter on Sunday. I mean, he basically provided the finishing punch there in the game. I think what you said about Javonte Williams as being a Samaje Perine, that can work certainly, because he's still reasonably productive when you get the ball to him in space as a pass catcher. It's just the burst isn't there, and then now you factor in the fumble as well. Like, the thing that he had going for him was reliability.
Mm-hmm.
And that went out the window when he had that fumble on Sunday. I mean, basically, the Bucs were drowning at that point. That fumble gave a lifeline. And one thing we know with Sean Payton, a way to get yourself taken out of the lineup, out of a point of emphasis, is to fumble. And probably the lack of fumbling to that point is what had kept Javonte Williams in the lineup. So this gets interesting here, because Badie, they've used 2 practice squad elevations on him. They only have 1 left. So if you're going to get more out of him, you're going to have to move him up to the 53. So there's some roster gymnastics that are going to have to go on here. Don't forget also, you've got Audric Estime sitting in reserve, another couple of games on injured reserve, and then he can return. And I think where this ends up going is you give Badie this coming game and then maybe the one beyond it. You get him on the 53 to show what he can do with more opportunities. If he levels off, if it's not there, then maybe you start turning the page to Audric Estime. But at running back, I think this may be kind of piecing it together over the course of the year until somebody really takes it as RB1. But I think you give Badie the first shot to do this. I think he's shown enough flashes now to where, in my estimation, he's earned the first opportunity to be an RB1 successor to Javonte Williams. I mean, Sean Payton was expressing faith last week in Javonte Williams, but I always say focus on what they do, not what they say. And in the second half, Javonte Williams touched the ball twice, 3 times if you include a play nullified by penalty. So only 2 touches in the stat sheet after that fumble speaks volumes.
It does. So what else speaks volumes is the long drive in the second half, because you just eliminate anything that Tampa was trying to think of, because you just take the air out of the ball. So we have 3 clips, Mace. We've got Nick's talking about the long drive. We've got Payton talking about the long drive. We've got Troutman talking about the long drive. Which do you want to start the discussion with?
Let's start with Sean Payton, because there's a lot to unpack here. He kind of goes on a couple of tangents, but in terms of the flow of the drive, I think we want to start with what Sean Payton had to say. So let's hear from him.
We have this saying, if you're playing the game on their end of the field, the mistakes can be magnified. So here you are playing it on your end of the field, and you got to be mindful of that. So coming out, we're going to be smart about where we're throwing it relative to tip balls and ball security. And 2 first downs, you've neutralized the field position at that moment. It's if you punted there, it's kind of like 30, call it. So 2 first downs backed up is a neutral field, and then obviously when you can possess the ball like that, that's a big deal. And then, when the 3rd downs come, then the rushing numbers come, the attempt, all those other things kind of come as a result of it. So I thought that was significant in the second half, the time it took, and then it flipped the field.
Thank you, Lil Jordan Humphrey.
Yes, the 3rd and 9, the 17-yard pass to Lil Jordan Humphrey. That's what opens this up. I mean, I don't know if it was the most important play in the game for the Broncos offense, but it's probably in the top 3. That gets this thing launched. There's another 3rd and 1 conversion when Bo Nix, basically keeps it himself, gets 2 yards, moves the chains. That's another thing I like is how Bo Nix, even though you don't want him running the ball too much, how Bo Nix is getting more confident as a runner now. Ideally, he's not leading you in rushing as he is at this moment for over the course of the 3 games to this point, but that's a healthy change of pace here. But the other thing that's interesting about this drive, Cease, is the emphasis on Bo Nix in the passing game. This thing goes 1-yard pass to Sutton, incompletion, 17-yard pass to Lil Jordan Humphrey, 8-yard pass to Javonte Williams, 4-yard pass to Sutton, 4-yard pass to Lil Jordan Humphrey, 5-yard pass to Josh Reynolds. It's not until play 8 on this drive that you see a run, and it's Nix with a 2-yard little keeper there.
Yeah.
This is a drive that when you talk about the controlled passing game being on rhythm, this is what you brought in Bo Nix to do.
Mm-hmm. And the degree of difficulty on that sustained drive, Mace, is very high.
Mm-hmm.
It's very high. So, yeah, it's a bunch of short stuff. And that's really tough to do, matriculating your way down the field. The Broncos did it. They took the air out of the ball. They kept their defense fresh so they could make plays out there.
Yeah. 7 for 10 on the drive in the end was Bo Nix.
Okay. You want to hear from Bo Nix on the long drive?
Yeah, sure. Let's hear from Bo.
Here's Bo.
Well, it's huge. You got to have those drives in games. And I think we started about the 5 and went for a long time. Chew some clock, and we were efficient, and we were probably a tipped pass or an explosive play again down there from scoring a touchdown. But that was a big drive for us. It was good to see, and next time I think we just want to get 7 points there.
Yeah. And you discombobulated Tampa Bay because remember, by the end of that drive, they had back-to-back offsides that turned 3rd and 14 into 3rd and 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got them out of sorts. It basically, and even though you only got the field goal and you were up 2 scores before the drive, you were up 2 scores after the drive, you accomplished something that maybe was more important than the points on the board. You drained clock time. In that situation, that is a goal accomplished, getting 7:57 off the clock. But also, I think you created something that added to the reservoir of confidence for the offense. Again, Bo Nix has the confidence, but this offense, it's fair to say, as a collective, needed some work in generating that confidence. Now you have tangible evidence that can go out there, sustain it, protect Bo Nix play after play after play. He's helping the protection as well by getting the ball out quickly. And also, the other thing, the big play of that drive, of course, other than the 17-yard pass to Lil Jordan Humphrey, was the scramble that he had for 22 yards. And some of this, and this is part of why he was a first-round pick, is you have to be able to leap beyond play structure and do something that is off script. And that's what Bo Nix can do. I pointed this out on Twitter during the game yesterday. He does have a very good feel for the pass rush. Not everybody has that. And it's something that, by and large, you're not going to be able to coach into a quarterback. Feel for the rush is something that you have or you don't. Now, we talked about like the play last week. You called it a self-sack. I'm putting it on TJ Watt, reaching out and making a really athletic play to kind of knock him off balance. But one thing that we've seen now through 3 games is Nix having a good feel and ability to anticipate the rush and either take off or get the ball out. If any, maybe it's a little too quick sometimes to take off, but he has a good sense of what's coming around him. I'd say he's above average in this trait. If we're on the scale of, say, Patrick Mahomes at the top, Christian Hackenberg at the bottom, Bo Nix is up here a lot closer to the Mahomes level feel than closer to the bottom.
Sure. And that's helpful.
Yeah.
No sacks yesterday. Getting that rush, no sacks. And we'll talk plenty of Broncos defense on tomorrow's show. So everyone stay tuned for that. We'll have a special episode for you as Mason and I will be flying. It's Dulles, right? We're going to Dulles?
Dulles International Airport. Yes, outside of Washington, D.C. And then starting the long drive over Interstate 66 and down Interstate 81 and a little bit on I-64 winding around and then crossing the border into wild, wonderful West Virginia. Broncos are already there. Wild, wonderful West Virginia for the Broncos practices over 3 days at the fabulous Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. I'm saying West Virginia a lot just for you.
I know.
Just for you.
It's going to be a great week, and it's going to feel better after a win. So we got plenty to talk about with Broncos defense on tomorrow's show. We are going to try Wi-Fi or cell signal, notwithstanding. We're going to try to get you some road trip stuff. We'll at least collect it and then maybe put it as a package out. But we'll try to go live from the road. Screw it, we're a road trip, man.
We're going to reenact some scenes from Tommy Boy. Is that your plan?
Hell yes. yes.
Oh, gosh. Who is your favorite little rascal?
Housekeeping. Do you want pillow? All right. It feels good after a win, Mace. Feels good. Looking forward to this week. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and now it's no longer about the Broncos going to West Virginia and rallying and finding themselves. It's about building on what they got there in their first win. And you mentioned the protection earlier. There's going to be a greater challenge this week. Make no mistake, you did get a break with Vea and Cansey not out there for the Bucs up front on Sunday.
Sure.
It certainly helped, the interior trio find their footing. I wish the Broncos had run the ball more consistently, despite the Bucs being shorthanded up front. You have a much greater challenge next Sunday with the New York Jets in their defensive line. So this thing's gonna maybe look a little bit different. Everyone's got to be on point. You cannot rest on any laurels for this game. As when this show airs, by the time you're watching it, the 24-hour period is over. It's turning the page and then getting on point and starting to study the Jets, because this is going to be a challenge if the Broncos want to get to 2-2. Hey, 2-2 is where I said if they were at the end of September, then everything was in front of them. But it's going to take some work to get there. They accomplished something good on Sunday, but now they got to build off that. And certainly it's going to be a big one for Sean Payton as well, because he's already lost the Steelers Russell Wilson game, even though Russ didn't play. And you got Nathaniel Hackett, former Broncos coach, calling plays for the Jets. And then the third leg of the Sean Payton personal challenge is the Saints game next month. You don't want to go 0-3 in those games if you're the Broncos head coach.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll see what they do, and we will be there in West Virginia for you. Now I'm saying Virginia.
You said it like me. I love that. It's rubbing
There's
off
an
on
R in Virginia. There's
Virginia.
an R. Virginia. Virginia.
Well, it's like how people from Missouri say Missouri. Not Missouri.
It's Missouri. Mm-hmm.
Missouri.
That's right.
Missouri. Columbia, Missouri.
Well, I don't care if you're from Missouri or Virginia. You need to help us out on YouTube, Mace. How can they do that?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you
never miss a vid.
That's right. He's Andrew Mason. Follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's the BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.